Business people and developers describe Newcastle as a living museum, a city heading in ever-decreasing circles down the drain. The Chamber of Commerce is about to take matters into its own hands.
We're seriously looking at the opportunity of suggesting to the necessary sources after some investigation that we may have to get back to the stage where we'll get our administrator back in where we can really get some things done.
The latest furore surrounds the tender process for a new $15 million Telstra headquarters planned for the council-owned civic site. Telstra announced it had picked building contractor McCloy's for the job after the company made an aggressive pitch dependent on the purchase of the site. The deal is far from done, according to Council, which is yet to decide on a use for the site. Further confusion over the latest civic site development proposal has only exacerbated the lack of confidence in Council held by the business community. According to the Chamber of Commerce, other developments have stalled and development dollars have gone begging.
The development money that's not coming into the city and is going outside into other areas in other states is got to stay in Newcastle. Now, somebody's got to accept the responsibility for it, and it's got to lay squarely on the shoulders of the Newcastle City Council.
The silent movie was produced in 1932 by Newcastle Civic Theatre. It captured images of innocent times, surf carnivals and glimpses of life in a working man's paradise. Romance of the Surf was a yarn about a young bloke who rescues a damsel in distress. The then 21-year-old leading man was Dick Price, now 85 and seeing the lost film for the first time in 60 years.
Brings back memories. I was very thin those days.
In the film, Dick rescues the girl of his dreams. Their courtship is played out against city landmarks and a day at the races. But all is not well. A jealous suitor arrives on the scene to challenge Dick. Naturally, he turns out to be a cad, and it's Dick, the hero, who gets the girl. But he never did get the £100 he was promised for the starring role.
Matter of fact, I had to pay for my own going into the Civic. They didn't give me a free pass.
It's thought the film was dumped when the old theatre was renovated a few years ago. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Plagued by a shoulder injury in '95, Jason Stoltenberg's world ranking has slipped to 78, but he made a positive start against Todd Woodbridge, breaking the 24-year-old in the first game. The world's number 30 returned the compliment in the very next game, and there wasn't another break of serve till the 9th game, allowing Stoltenberg to serve out the set. Again, it was a break apiece in the second, with the former Narrabri boys' confidence growing with every point. It came down to a tiebreaker, Stoltenberg prevailing for a straight sets victory and hopeful of a starting place for the cup tie against Chinese Taipei next week.
Well, you know, after tonight I'm a certainty, aren't I?
Desperate to play next week in his hometown of Hobart is Richard Fromberg, but Scott Draper wasn't helping his cause in the opening set. He took the first 7-5 and then was serving for the match at 5-3 in the second before Fromberg's timing returned. The tenacious Tasmanian won 11 of the last 12 games, clinching the third set 6-1. One of the highlights was the mixed doubles featuring locals Trudy Musgrave and Rachel McQuillan, along with Australian sporting legends Tony Roach and John Newcombe. Straight away, the winners of 5 Wimbledon doubles titles were at each other. But it wasn't long before Nuke returned a favour. Musgrave, who'll start at the AIS in Melbourne next week, seemed at home against the Roach serve, helping to break it and secure a 6-3 victory. The Knights were back in the pool this morning after celebrating their second Sevens victory. Andrew John struggling to stay above water. But yesterday he and the Knights were head and shoulders above the opposition, scoring 8 tries in their romp against the Bears. Andrew crossed twice in the final and was named player of the tournament.
I was sort of a bit embarrassed earning Player of the Series, considering the former likes of my brother Matthew and Jamie Ainscoe, and that's. But I'll take the money anyway.
In fact, Captain Matthew originally thought he'd beaten little brother to the prize.
I was standing there and they yelled. We really couldn't hear what the result was from where I was standing. And then a bloke patted me on the back. I walked up to get the award. Unfortunately, it was Andrew, so I'm going to claim half of it anyway.
Jamie Ainscoe could also lay claim to the man of the tournament mantle, as the centre's explosive pace was one of the highlights of the weekend. He scored 3 tries in the final and 6 throughout the event. The Knights pocketed $80,000 for the victory. The only drawback, an arm injury to Darren Tracy and knee problems to promising winger John Carlaw, who'll undergo surgery in the next couple of days to repair damaged cartilage.
First opportunity to press for a spot, and it's a shame about the injury, but a little bit of a break and then I come back at it.
The Knights' next assignment, 2 trial matches in Coffs Harbour, the first of which is this weekend.
The busy Nelson Bay Road carries 10,000 vehicles a day and thousands more during holiday times. Beside the road, another is taking shape, fairly much unimpeded through bushland. The deviation will take out the dangerous stretches of road between Salt Ash and Bob's Farm through an area known as the Sandhills. As well as the frustration drivers experience with not being able to overtake, the area is considered a fatigue zone for holidaymakers heading to the bay. The new road will provide dual carriageway driving for northbound traffic. The old section of the road will be 2 southbound lanes. Eventually, engineers hope to replace the existing road with dual lanes as well. The latest roadworks fit into a 20-year plan for Port Stephens' future traffic needs.
This is one of the most strategic jobs we've been waiting for some years. It'll really break the back of the trip. It's been very frustrating for motorists not being able to pass through that section of the road, and it will give a lot of relief and safety to the trip.
Hot off the press, the eagerly awaited Commissioner's report has yet to be studied by councillors. However, its major recommendation is clear.
The recommendation from Commissioner Cleland was to approve Burrell's sand mining with a few minor alterations to the conditions.
The long-running issue went to a special inquiry in December last year when all interested parties had the opportunity to put their cases to Commissioner Cleland. Some minor alterations have been included in the report dealing with Borrell's application to mine the 200-hectare dune forest site 10 kilometres north of Newcastle. The job could take 40 years and supply sand to the building industry. Councillors will reconsider a development application.
I'd say the first meeting in March, that'll be the second Tuesday in March, there'll be a decision at Council.
Playing in the yellow in front of a 6,000-strong crowd, the Mariners scored 3 tries, the first of which was to one of their best players, winger Scott Blacker. He was again on hand for the Mariners' second in the third quarter, which again came via the boot and put his side back in the match.
I was very impressed with Scott Blacker, the winger. You know, it's very rare that you actually come up with a winger as one of your better players on the day, but I thought he was outstanding yesterday.
The Mariners scored another try late in the match through Jim Swan, but they failed to catch last year's Winfield Cup premiers, who despite the loss of 4 of their better players to Parramatta, still lived up to their entertainers tag, scoring 4 tries with veteran Terry Lamb playing a major role. All the Mariners except David Mullane passed a fitness test this afternoon for their 2-match tour of the South Pacific. Robbie Ross will take Mullane's place.
We fly out tomorrow to Cook Islands to play Canterbury again, so we've got to either become good friends or enemies. And then a week later we play Canberra. So we'll wait for 2 weeks, but it'll be a good time for both of us.
Wollongong's Philip Clayton wasn't the only teenager to surprise this season. An 18-year-old from the other Still City also made his mark. After 3 years on the Uncle Toby circuit with overall finishes of 27 and 28, Joshua Blair's second proved he'll be a force in the sport next season.
It was always coming a good race, and it was good to see that it came at the end of the season and actually moved me up to 10th spot overall.
It was his third top 10 finish for the series, and he's now set himself to win a race in the next Uncle Toby's. But his commitments for the season are far from complete. Blair has the national titles on the Gold Coast, where he'll be hoping to win yet another Ironman crown.
It'd be a sweet finish to the season if I could win the Open Australian Ironman, because it'd make it the 4th year in a row for me, so that's every sort of age group for the last 4 years.
Meantime, his clubmate Matt Rees also secured an Uncle Toby's contract for next year, while the injury-plagued Drew Blatchford from the Lakes Club will apply for a wild card after finishing out of the top 20. All forms of skiing were on display, with 3 times world barefoot champion Brett Wing giving a demonstration of just what can be done on one ski. The former world record holder for the fastest barefoot skier at 152 kilometres an hour eventually made a graceful exit, allowing several talented skiers to take part in an invitational night jump. It was the first time the region has hosted such an event, with some barefooters faring better than others. $1,000 first prize was on offer to pay for the growing physiotherapy bills, with many backing up for the feature event, the Barefoot Endurance, the next morning. Sydney's Paul Jones took out the race for the 2nd year in a row, Michelle Kavanagh the women's, and Aberdeen's Jason Perry the junior boys.
More than 100 stunned workers attended a crisis meeting at the lead smelter.
The situation is that the company have indicated to the unions that they've got some severe economic problems, that they plan to reduce their workforce by 130 over the next 3 years.
Emotions ran high as union officials and employees debated the preferred options after the forced redundancies were announced. The shock news means the immediate loss of 30 jobs from a range of services, including canteen facilities and some manual labour. Workers are furious over a non-retrenchment policy that was meant to be in place, a policy the employees claim has proven to be useless.
Extremely upset the workers, because the company have always prided itself with having a no retrenchment policy, and out of the blue and almost overnight that they've elected to do away with a number of people, and so it's extremely disappointing.
Management issued a statement saying today's decision is difficult for the entire workforce at the plant, but is necessary to ensure the long-term viability of the site. However, workers are now concerned about the long-term viability of their jobs. This meeting raised the possibility of industrial action.
Depending on the outcome of the negotiations with the company, I'd expect there will be some industrial action that'll take place.
A second meeting will be held on Thursday to discuss redundancy packages and to decide whether to begin striking. Amanda Bolger, NBN News. It was an optimistic Lord Mayor who spoke to Newcastle's business leaders. Despite recent calls for an administrator to be appointed to run the city, Councillor Hayes is convinced the new council is having teething problems.
What has happened is, because of one development, there's been some shockwaves sent through the business community in the way that the council has dealt with that development.
Doing his best to push aside the controversy, he concentrated on one of the major issues for 1996, to breathe life back into a declining city centre. Councillor Hayes says an inner-city revitalisation task force will be set up to oversee development.
There's two things going there. The work that the council is contemplating itself as far as the refurbishment of the heritage buildings on Hunter Street, and also the site on the corner of Burwood and Hunter Street that there's expressions of interest for.
He hopes the combination of council and business working together will see a resurgence in the city. Amanda Bolger, NBN News. The tankers, worth about $100,000 each, were built by a Curry firm and are regarded as the best in the state.
These two have replaced some of the older vehicles. We've got some vehicles some 20 years of age, and they're really past the use-by date and no longer safe, so we've upgraded the fleet by putting these two in their place.
They are designed for the safety of firefighters, with inbuilt sprays to protect crews if they get caught close to the flames. There is a seat belt for each officer, a special cabin structure that can support the weight of the vehicle should it overturn, as well as the normal firefighting features of four-wheel drive and water storage capacity. Foam from a storage tank can be activated with a flick of a lever. And while this summer has been relatively mild for bushfires, there are warnings not to become complacent.
We've had very good growing conditions, there's been very little hazard reduction, and the potential for the next season is increasing. The risk is likely to be greater next season if we don't get consistent heavy rains.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Adamstown Rosebud was busily preparing their ground today for Saturday's 6 p.m. season opener. They've lost 4 key players to the Breakers, but are confident of an improvement on last season's poor showing, starting with the Saints.
Yeah, St George are pretty tough nut to crack. They've got a very good youth policy too, Paul, where they do bring a lot of the young people up. But yeah, I think we can roll them. Hopefully, we can roll them on Saturday night and get a good start to the season.
While the Buds are at home, the Central Coast debut in the competition will be in Sydney against the Dolphins. In surf lifesaving, last round Uncle Toby's place getters Philip Clayton and Jonathan Crowe will be at Newcastle Beach on Sunday for the final of the AMP Challenge. The pair will represent defending champion North Wollongong, which will be one of 23 teams to contest the event. The annual Wollombi Woodchop will take on special significance this weekend, with state and national competitions taking place. 48 axemen from around Australia and New Zealand will take part, the highlight being the National Underhand Championship on Saturday. Marathon Stadium looked a picture for the Knights' first training run on their home ground this year. It was new territory for 3 players who'll run on in Coffs, winger Andrew Hodge, Lee Jackson and former Magpie Glenn Grief.
It's the first time I've trained on the field and it looks very big, so I'm looking forward to the season. I'm sure the home crowd's going to be on my side this time instead of being on the opposite side, so I'm looking forward to that, yeah.
While he was somewhat bewildered by the experience, his front row partner got lost, but is looking forward to finding his feet in Coffs Harbour.
Yeah, it's all experience for me at the moment, so I've just got lost coming into the ground, like, so I'm trying to find my way things round, like, but no, but hopefully we'll do good. It's only a provincial game, but you know, we're not looking to win.
The Knights head north for a week tomorrow, Harrigan to undergo further fitness tests before Saturday.
According to Jeff Sam, president of the Australian Private Hospitals Association, until it became an election issue, the shared provision of health services between the public and private sectors generated more contempt than interest from the government. Membership in health funds has plummeted to just over 30%, thousands abandoning high-cost private health cover and putting pressure on the public system.
Health is now a priority for both political parties. At last they're recognising what the community's been saying for a long time, and that is that they are dissatisfied with the health policy in this country at the moment. What both parties are recognising is that they have to provide some incentives for people to take out private health insurance.
And while John Howard and Paul Keating square off over health, health insurers see an opportunity to regain lost ground.
The insurers will move back to simple packages. They will be able to reduce their price because there will be a greater take-up of health insurance by the community, and I think that there will be stronger relationships between the hospitals and the insurers to ensure that the value for money is there also.
Jeff Sam's visit to the Lake Macquarie Private Hospital coincided with the 10th anniversary of the hospital's cardiac imaging lab. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. Despite its imposing bulk, the cathedral was left shattered by the earthquake. Temporary repairs braced shaky bricks over the 5 years it took for the insurance money to come through. Now the repair, which will cost millions and taking nearly 2 years, is underway in earnest.
It would have been much simpler to have built a new cathedral, but this is such a significant building in the life of the city and the life of the church that obviously we need to do all that we can to repair it and preserve it for the next century.
The brick structure is being pinned back together with long stainless steel rods. The rods are similar to those used on the restoration of England's Windsor Castle. 300 pins are being inserted horizontally through the thick brick walls to eventually form a new framework within the structure. In all, the new skeleton will comprise 3 kilometres of steel rodding. Tons of new grout is being injected into old brick joints, and painstaking stone masonry is reviving shattered decorative architecture. Services will be conducted inside the cathedral, even though half the church is hidden behind hoardings for the duration of the job. The country is back in town is the theme behind the show, which aims to provide hands-on experience of rural life to the urban community. Sports commentator and former resident Daryl Eastlake was on hand to launch the show, an event which he sees as vital to the hunter.
Well, a Newcastle show is one of those great shows, isn't it? You know, you bring all of the rural people into a situation where Newcastle sits on the coastline. It's a lovely marriage. And the fact that it's been going for so long. And I think if we don't keep that sort of thing happening in areas like Newcastle and even Sydney, then the kids of today forget where our heritage is. They forget what it was all about.
Along with the traditional grand parade, animal shows and fireworks, singer John Williamson will perform on the Friday evening.
Dare I say it? I'm about the only bloke in the world these days that doesn't say the word huge.
The fall occurred in race 4, the Walker Hardware Insight Tech Handicap over 1,700 metres. Approaching the turn, Sam Arnold's mount, St Germain, and the yellow colours with the black stripes clipped the heels of Manchero, leaving it and jockey Jeff Snowden sprawled on the turf.
There's a fall. Manchero is down, so too is St Germain, and it's a nasty one. A very, very nasty fall, and both jockeys are on the track and they haven't moved. Opera Bijou.
Both jockeys were taken to hospital and later allowed to leave. Arnold left cursing his luck, as St Germain was a late ride he picked up from Newcastle jockey Alan Robinson. No such dramas in the Towns Cup over 1,440 metres, where Aquasoft gave them all something to chase. The Tamworth-trained gelding returning 670 for the win, scoring from the ever-consistent Mark Time, with Calabash third.
It's one of the best established schools catering for high school age students with intellectual disabilities in the region. But a population shift away from the city to the suburbs and the natural movement of students to school leaving age will leave the school underused. 8 of the present 18 students will be moving on at the end of this year.
I can't see them leaving a school open with 10 pupils. But my concern is if they close the school, what will happen with the education that Jonathan requires in special education and in a transition program that only Newcastle can offer?
Wendy Ponson is concerned for the future schooling needs of her 13-year-old son Jonathan. The Education Department advertised for more students to help fill the gap last year with a disappointing response.
Jonathan has at least 4 more years, and I want to make sure that his education is available for him.
Last night, the Roads and Traffic Authority called a public meeting. It said was to discuss the spending of an allocated $2 million on either traffic lights or a roundabout. But that wasn't what happened. We were refused permission to record the event on camera. However, the residents say they were told no definite plan had been devised and the meeting was simply an opinion-gathering exercise. It was back in May of 1994 that locals first began agitating for something to be done. Now, almost 2 years later, and despite promises, nothing has happened.
Well, we really haven't got much further ahead than what we were last year when the $2 million were allocated for the upgrading of the intersection.
One suggestion is that the nearby Metford Road intersection be reopened, and that controlled by traffic lights. Access to Chelmsford Drive would be restricted to reduce traffic flow there, making the area safer.
The situation we've got here at the moment is becoming almost impossible to cross this highway for local residents. It's not, in my opinion, through traffic causing the problem. I believe it's local traffic, and with the growth area here, it's something that needs to be looked at urgently.
RTA workers were carrying out a survey of the highway section today in preparation for another meeting with residents to be held next month.